All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Camelia. I am the founder of the Australian Hospitality Alumni Network. Today, I would like to give a warm welcome to each and every one of you to join our third, but also the final webinar of the year 2021. And today, I'm really glad to have our very special guest speaker, Miss Carrie Newsom from What About Vietnam, to deliver a very interesting topic that I am sure that many of you would like to know further. It's about welcoming international tourists to Vietnam in the post-COVID era. Before we start, I just want to be sure that we are all familiar with Zoom. That is just a normal practice that I often use before the webinar start, because we're going to have quite a bit of interactive activity during the event. So I want to make sure you are familiar with Zoom. All right, so when you see the screen, you will see a toolbar in front of you at the bottom of the screen. When we have participants, for the number of people joining us right now, we have a chat box here. For those who have any questions, please feel free to leave a question here so that we can read and then can get back to you as soon as possible. We also have a reaction function as well, so that you can give us a heart, or if you like our contents, you can raise your thumbs up. Or very important as well is there's a function that you can raise your hand when there's an interactive activity being held by the program, the organizer, or if you have any urgent questions that you would like to raise hand. So right now, I just want to test it a bit to make sure that you are familiar with the situation. Can you please type yes, please, into the chat box if you're from Vietnam? So yeah, so we have Ali from Vietnam, Ngọc from Vietnam. All right, only 2 people. Okay, so there's a few here. All right, I want you to write down me if you are not from Vietnam. Into the chat box, just type in me. Okay, me, Sydney. Hi, Greg. Me, Philippines. Hello, Philippines. Carrie is very happy. All right, I would like you to put a thumbs up into the reaction button if you are still a student. It means that you're young. It is not no negativity about it. Would love to have more young people joining us. So there's 1 thumbs up. All right. Okay, good. If you are currently working in the hospitality and tourism industry, please give me a heart shape into the activity button. Just give me a heart. Yay. So there's a few people that already working in the industry. All right, so our warm-up activity can end here. Thank you so much for your participation. This is quite important as well to ensure that we're going to have our interaction during our meeting. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kick off the program of the day. Can I check if you see my screen? Probably just give me a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So it's a green background in front of you. That's good. All right, so everyone, again, welcome to Hospitality 101 webinar. What about Vietnam welcoming international tourists in the post-COVID era? What we're gonna go through today, what Hospitality 101 is about. We're actually starting from October this year to keep providing an education webinar to our alumni network from the Australian Hospitality Network and Extended Network as well, to cover a different topic every month. And it's actually being hosted monthly on every first Saturday of the month. So we hope that, yes, we we're going to have the chance to meet very often to discuss some of the trending topic that we can bring up to you. And for this one, we're going to have a focus on tourism in the post-COVID, as I mentioned before. For today's agenda, we're going to I have two parts. The first part to give you an introduction, and we're going to jump ahead to get into a presentation from Carrie on all the topic that she can deliver. Please do stay with us until the end of the event, because there's so many exciting activity, including a mini game that you will have the chance to win a very interesting prize, and also to join our panel discussion of the day as well. And for this, I would like to have a warm applause to welcome Miss Carrie Newsom, who has been wearing so many hats in the industry from what we see. Her official title, probably what I see as well, is an Australian manager at the ITS Vietnam. She's been working in the hospitality and tourism for over 20 years. And of all that, over the past 18 months, she have become an international postcarder at the her own personal postcard, What About Vietnam, to give all the insights that we can collect from Vietnam and introducing Vietnam to the world. And right now, all what I'm gonna do, hand it over to Carrie. Carrie, are you ready to take over?
Yes, I think so.
Yes,
I do share screen?
Yes, please. So
Yeah.
I stop sharing mine now, and then you can start sharing yours.
I think I've got it. Yeah?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and very excited to be here and talking to you in Vietnam, in the Philippines, in Australia. And I really feel very honored to be talking about this subject, is because I think it's hitting all of our radar screens at the moment, isn't it? Like, there's news coming out daily about announcements and all sorts of things. So we've got a big agenda, so stick with me. And if there's anything in here that maybe you already know, just forgive me for that, because there are different levels within the audience, and hopefully you're going to walk away with some knowledge. So some of the considerations that I'd like to put into the discussion today is visas. We have to start with visas, because that's the door opening, half opening, or opening fully to Vietnam. It kind of starts there. Then we've got travel requirements, and that is around health and safety and building confidence. And we want our travelers to Vietnam to have confidence. Hospitality, how will it regenerate? Really big topic. Hospitality is a big employee in the country, so, you know, a lot to cover in that. Popular destinations, what are some of those challenges when you're working in very big tourist hubs, where there are a lot of people and a lot of situations, attractions, resorts, etc. to manage. Then there's the type of tourist. Who are they going to be? Tourist expectations and management. Is there going to be a different expectation for the tourist who is a short-haul traveller to a long-haul traveller? And then we're going to have fun. Camelia is going to run this cool super game around sustainable tourism. So that's going to be good. And then I want to get your involvement around something I call career mind mapping. And that's going to help hopefully give you some guidance, or help maybe train your direction or where to head in the future, and hopefully make some wise decisions. So why doesn't that go next? Okay, cool. Presentation objective. Okay, I thought it was important to give you right up front what I'm aiming to achieve in the presentation. And basically it's to talk about the information that we're receiving and trying to process, and trying to decipher what is what I call spin, and what is actual reality, and what is news, and what is information to be trusted. So when I talk about spin, I'm talking about information that, sometimes is taken a little bit out of context, and sometimes it's missing some of the most important pieces. And sometimes Vietnam is not so good at communication in that. So in this presentation, I want to open up the book and I want to try and give you a very big, wide scope of what tourism as a whole is facing in the future, and hopefully arm you with what I'm calling the secret weapon of insight. Because if you have insight into the big picture of tourism, I feel like you're going to be able to make good decisions in the future, and you're going to be able to decipher information that is coming your way in like all sorts of measures and put some reality to it. So that's it. The secret weapon, insight. That's what I'm going for. Right. Next. These slides are not liking. Here we go. Now, I want to, and as I said, start with visas, because in the visa process, what we are seeing is a lot of complexity that's going to come into it. It's already happening. And I think I've missed
Vietnam.
Wait. Sorry, I just had a moment. The visa process. Okay, so there's quite a bit to go through in this, but it's essential that I kind of drill down, and if you'll bear with me, I hope to reveal why it's so important we have to go to such deep levels with this, because these complexities and where the travel industry is having to deal with it is going to affect, impact, and influence who our travelers are going to be post-COVID and where they're going to come from. So we need to understand this visa process. So let me just go through some of the detail that I think should be spoken about and we should delve into. So there was an announcement just recently that 5 provinces were open to tourism. Now, this kind of is where the first piece of spin, or the currency of spin, first comes out. Because when that announcement came out, a lot of people were going, oh, this is great, this is fantastic. We're all going to be able to jump on that bandwagon. Well, once again, there was some missing detail. There was some missing information, and there was very scant information shared across the board about what the visa process was there, because there were some serious conditions around that. You have to book a tour through a travel agent. You have to buy a charter flight, and you must travel within that packaged tour for a minimum of 7 days. You have to also be a Vietnamese citizen, a spouse of a Vietnamese, or a child of a Vietnamese to be eligible. You can possibly go to Phu Quoc because it is visa free, but at the moment, for the majority of those 5 provinces, those are the requirements. And when they say stay in the resort, they really mean stay in the resort, travel within the tour package, no deviation from that. You must also come on that charter flight. So this is what they're calling phase 1. And in phase 1, which we're talking about December, this is what's happening. This is what is inviting our tourists to Vietnam, and is part of this process as it's unfolding, and part of this, I guess, this post-COVID era. But there's phases. So this is phase 1 we are in. And as you can see, while I'm kind of pushing the complexity here, the complexity affects people's decision-making. So if they are already experiencing that, oh no, I won't be able to go to Vietnam because I don't fit that criteria, then they're having to be pushed back. So the second phase, if this first phase goes well, they are saying that they will expand the areas beyond the first 7 days. So the second phase will open up a little bit further, but still under very, very strict conditions, including all of that eligibility, being married to a Chinese, married to a Vietnamese, a child of a Vietnamese. And secondly, you have to stick to the tour group. So whatever the tour group does, that's what you're doing. So it's very, very controlled. And then the third phase, which they're talking about, will come out after January, is the final phase. Now, this is the phase where they're hoping to open up to the broader audience again, and the opportunity to travel indiscriminately because the vaccination level is up, and obviously building confidence with the new traveller moving forward. So these are some of the things that we should know, but actually trying to find this information and get this level of detail is very difficult. And this is a little bit where Vietnam needs to look at their forms of communication. So a lot of emphasis is put on the travel agents, the DMCs, the tourism bodies, and Vietnam Tourism to make sure that they are communicating to the rest of the world accurate, precise information. Because if it is put out indiscriminately, and if it is put out, as we are starting to witness now, very kind of, I would almost put recklessly, that, people are interpreting it different ways, and it's not building confidence. In fact, it's building concern because the information is not detailed enough and it doesn't give enough precise information. I think one of the key factors moving forward for the traveller will be giving them information that they can trust. And it will be the relationships that they have with the travel agent or the DMC or the tour operator that they're used to dealing with that will give them confidence. Even the hospitality industry has a role to play in this, all about building confidence. If I go on and I want to book a hotel in Hanoi, etc., if that hotel can come back to me and warn me about some of the processes involving the visa, I'm going to put them up high on my list of companies that I want to deal with, because that's going to build confidence in me. And a lot of where this future lies for Vietnam as these phases roll out is building confidence. Because you'll notice I haven't given dates. There's not a date mentioned here. Not by middle of December, is that the 15th or the 17th or the 19th? Or, when they're saying January, is that end of January? They're telling me that Vietnam Airlines is also going to offer flights between Australia and Hanoi. Well, that's fantastic. But when exactly? And does that visa process entitle me as an Australian to travel? The odds are probably not. So I build this into, what was it like before COVID? What was the situation then? Well, it was easy peasy. Like there were 24 countries that were visa exempt, that could go and travel very freely to Vietnam without any visa at all. Unfortunately, Australia is not one of them, which has been disappointing. And I've always been knocking on Vietnam tourism to ask why. But the visa process offered e-visas and VOA, which is visa on arrival, to 80 countries. So the process was becoming very simple. It was done online and you could travel to Vietnam very freely. So what I'm trying to build into this presentation is some knowledge around complexity and some knowledge around this process is going to slow the evolution of tourists coming back to Vietnam. It's going to inhibit, and unless we do it well and we look at our communication skills, this is where we could fall over rather badly. I mean, we don't even know whether non-vaccinated travellers will ever be allowed to come back to Vietnam. And I mean, we need to watch this because as people start to come through, we're going to be watching also their feedback. So when they are going through this process, if they are so permitted to come through in the third phase, don't you think that there's going to be reviews out there that people are going to be writing up, maybe even coming on my show, on my What About Vietnam podcast, to give some feedback as to what a travel experience was like, how the visa process went, the fact that they had to get a smart app on their phone. They're not used to having to do that. They're going to be sharing this very openly, very honestly, and very widely. And guess what? Every single traveler is going to be watching it like an absolute hawk, because these are going to be our future travelers giving us their interpretations, their experiences with real honesty. Now, I just want to talk about this a little bit further, because the complexity impacts decision making. So when we are looking at travelers in the post-COVID era, we've got to look up everything that leads them in the journey to Vietnam. So this complexity, what are the important factors around building confidence? What is the non-vaccinated person going to do? Is there going to be information shared about that? And I wanted to go to a company that is or specializes in duty of care. Now, this is totally aside from travel insurance. This is an organization that specializes in what they call duty of care. For a brief explanation of duty of care is when employers who have staff that travel the world for business, they have a duty of care to ensure that those travelers, whether they decide to extend their travel when they're traveling for business or whatever, that those travelers have at their beck and call and access to someone or an organization can help them if anything happens untoward. So this company specializes in this, and an ex-colleague of mine, Chris Hill, is just going to give you a little bit of a snapshot of what and how he sees his company and what they do in this area, and how likewise this is going to impact the traveller moving forward. Let's have a listen to Chris.
Vietnam is a relatively safe environment, but things can still happen. I think duty of care has certainly broadened. It now goes all the way, as we've seen people working from the office to being on the road to being in your destination. We're seeing that that's certainly been a focus for organisations with employee welfare checks are now commonplace, and it's ensuring that you as an individual, or you've got access to, or do your research and do prepare well in terms of the right information, such as things as like vaccinations for travel. Now, of course, it's going to be huge in terms of obviously COVID, the airline requirements, the actual in-country requirements for vaccinations. Remembering it's not just COVID, it's all the other vaccinations required for your destination as well. So really understanding those kind of requirements. Also your things like quarantining, things like border closures, permit requirements. Generally COVID has really changed the way we travel, and we're going to prepare for travel and the experience of traveling itself. It's become a very doable process, absolutely, but complex, and it just needs some careful thought. And I think if you're either traveling on business or leisure or on your own or perhaps with your family, I think doing some solid preparation about the type of trip that you're traveling on will certainly help you avoid some of those unnecessary risks.
I think it's important to put it out there that Vietnam is unique. We know that. We know it's a beautiful, wonderful, big, amazing country. But it is a little bit behind at the moment on the world stage. So on the world stage, a lot of other countries are seeing their travellers move around the world quite fluidly. However, because of the vaccination rate and the slow to get that up and running, Vietnam is carrying the burden of that. And plus in 21, when Ho Chi Minh City got hit with the pandemic and the Delta variant, it really rocked that city. So Vietnam is in a very big recovery stage. And because of that, it's going to slow the process down for us. But I wanted to have a look at the biggest overseas markets to break them up into two areas. So if you are a long haul traveler, so say you're taking maybe a day or a day and a half to get to Vietnam versus what I call a short haul traveler. So that's someone maybe in Japan or Singapore or Korea. Who do you think would be first out of the gate to come and come into Vietnam in, say, stage 3 or phase 3 of this opening up process? Would you take the risk of traveling a day and a half to get to Vietnam versus if you're just in Korea or in China or somewhere like where your flight is 6 hours to get you home? This is where this split and this knowledge and this insight I'm trying to give you. So when you're meeting someone in the third phase that's from Europe, and they're as white as I am, and you say, oh, you're from Europe, you're going to know what they went through to get there, and then all of the complexities that went into them getting there. Now, just to give you an example, I went to Melbourne a couple of weeks ago. I had to get a permit letter to go into Victoria. I had to get a letter from the Victorian government just to permit me to come from New South Wales to Victoria, on top of downloading the app and all of the other bits and pieces. So just understanding our overseas market and where and how we're going to draw these first countries into the fold and what we need to be conscious of. Because when we're looking at 2019, when we were welcoming over 18 million tourists, and now in 2021, they're saying it's probably been no more than 3.8 million. There's a big gap there. And we have to be conscious that moving forward, we need to cater to the evolution process and how that's going to impact these countries and these visitors from these countries. But let's get back to hospitality. And let's really turn our attention on one of the biggest employee groups in the country. What will be the biggest challenges? I wonder if I can ask, Camilla, if you can let me know in the chat box, because I'm looking for a why or an N to this question. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot to do with hotels around the world, but in particular in Vietnam. And one of the things that I've noticed in Vietnam is there is often an incentive program for staff to get good reviews on TripAdvisor. They will actually be incentivized to do this. So I'd like to know if any of the people on here today have either worked for a hotel that does this or know of a hotel that does this. Because make no mistake, as I said, the review process will be very serious moving forward. The attention on reviews and how the hospitality industry is performing, there's going to be a huge watchdog on that. And as I said, even with my What About Vietnam podcast, I'm going to be chasing down travelers to come on the show to tell me about their experiences. And to keep that real and to keep that authentic, I'm going to have to take it as it comes. Good, bad, indifferent. And I think it's really important that for you, in your career planning, in your aspirations, and where your ambitions lie, that you get a really good handle on the hotel and their vision and their philosophy for how you're going to be managed. Because while the hospitality industry and hotels in particular are going to be wanting staff, you also need to be conscious that you want to work for that hotel and that company, that your insight into the industry, your understanding of what's important for a traveler, that hotel is actually on the same page as you. It's really, really important, because you are going to have to step up and look at ways to cater to these complexities, to this person that's come all this way, to this traveler who is certainly in the early stages of that third stage, is going to be maybe a little bit nervous. So what do we need to be aware of with a hotel and getting to understand and appreciate them? They have to be a hotel that is going to be able to evangelize confidence. They're going to have to offer flexibility on bookings and cancellations. They're going to have to not make their prices impact by the quality of service. The quality of service has got to be there no matter what. They have to be clear and precise in their communications. As I pointed out to you about the incentives or the penalisation of staff who get poor trip advisor reviews, that's going to be tough to work under. So you want to make sure you can manage yourself, and you're going to be managed in that role. And that's from the housekeeping role to front desk to sales to PR to whatever you are in the hotel group. You need to have good English. And I feel really bad about asking that and putting that out there, because my Vietnamese is shocking. So as a second language, I hate to say this, but because it's so universal, and as we talked about some of those long haul customers, they're probably going to be most able to relate to English. So if you have good English speaking skills and you are competing against someone with all the other skills that are the same, guess who's going to get that job? It's going to be that person that has English speaking skills and some of the insights that we're talking about, and willing to ask some questions. The hotel needs to present.
If I might interrupt you just a bit on these incentivize our staff to get the feedback or review for TripAdvisor, right? I'm not sure about other people here who might get some opinion, but in my hotels, what we did was we actually print out a card, like a TripAdvisor card, and to allow our staff to write their name. So every time they help our customers and they just say, hi, ma'am, this is something that we have done for you. Is there anything else I can do for you? If you need any help, feel free to contact me. This is my card. So basically, it's a standard uniform card that allow our staff to write down their name. So with that, not only our guests feel special because they get help, but they could also remember our staff members. So when they write out a review on TripAdvisor, they're actually saying, I would like to say thanks to Miss Chang for her help to get this and that. And with that, our GM, her general manager, was so proud because he knows that even our staff names are mentioned on TripAdvisor review. So it's one of those things apart from encouraging our guests, and we also give prizes to those who have the most name to be mentioned on TripAdvisor. And I think here there's one of our guests attending the webinar, Mr. Rai Taneja, sorry for my pronunciation, but if you would like to open up your microphone to share your experience with TripAdvisor, feel free to open up your mic.
Let's see if you guys can actually hear me.
Yes.
Yes, so, I can.
Okay, perfect. Well, look, I frequently do get asked. I probably stay, we'll say 270 days a year in hotel within Vietnam. So I do get asked quite frequently. Most of my platform is in 5-star hotels inside Vietnam. Definitely, we can look at places like Accor and IHG leading the way. They do ask multiple times. For example, I was sitting at the Silico last week in Ho Chi Minh City, which is in the Intercontinental Hotel, and the staff did come up to me and said, hey, would you mind taking some time to rate us on TripAdvisor? So it does exist, and it's I think I see it also within the 3-star forum, but I don't stay at those hotels very often. So that's my 2 piece.
Yeah, and really good feedback. And I think there's different ways that hotels do it. And I think Camellia shared one idea. I've experienced it mostly in around that 4 or 5-star, not too many of the 3-star. But I think it's definitely going to be even more pronounced moving forward, because, as I said before, we've got to see the hotel industry kind of getting out there and evangelizing that their travelers are enjoying their stay, that, you know, they're having a good time, that, you know, the complexities and some of the issues that might have presented themselves in the early days are gone, and they're having a really good experience. So, you know, TripAdvisor, you know, does do that. And as I said, even the travelers on my show, you know, it's not all rosy. They paint the picture. I don't know sometimes what's going to come out of their mouth. But, you know, to keep it real, I think we've got to stay open to that. I think what will be interesting will be what happens with the homestays and the cruising market as well. I think, you know, there's some opportunities moving forward for, you know, maybe some of our people to be trained to maybe even consult with homestays and give them some advice around how to manage hygiene and safety moving forward. But you certainly want to be working for a hotel and have a boss that has got the right sort of vision and communication around this. Thanks for your input.
Yes, and finally, we also have a comment from Jenny Hotel by San Jose saying that staff with the most praise on TripAdvisor would have a higher chance to be awarded as Employee of the Month. So that's some of those current practice that we have in the hotel industry at the moment. All right, Carrie, off to you.
And I think what's interesting, just to finish up just on that point, is that Vietnam was probably my first experience, like the gentleman before said, of actually being asked, or as Camellia pointed out, I would get something with the staff member's name so I could actually nominate her in the subject, you know, that I'm talking about on TripAdvisor, to say, you know, that she was very helpful. And I did find myself doing that in Vietnam, where I have never been asked that in other countries that I've visited in hotel stays. So I was quite intrigued by that, to have that experience. But I think it's important to talk about the hotel industry just in the influence it has on the traveller, because let's face it, when you've arrived into country, the first place that you're going to go to possibly is your hotel. You're going to check in. So the first people that you get to meet and you get to interact with a local is usually going to be the hotel staff. So there's a really big opportunity to influence. I have to tell you my story about Rose. Now, Rose worked at a hotel that I stayed at, probably a 4.5-star hotel in Hoi An. And I'd actually been there a couple of days. I was enjoying my stay, but I actually have have 2 girls that I sponsor their education through an NGO there, and I was actually going to meet them for the first time. So I wanted to bring them something, but I didn't know what was kind of the thing to do. So the NGO manager said, look, you know, maybe some hair clips and things for their hair and things like that. So I looked in the markets and what I could see close by, but I couldn't really find anything. And I thought, gosh, I've come all this way and I've got nothing. So anyway, I went to the reception desk, and this girl named Rose. I spoke to Rose and I said, you know, do you know where I could go to get this kind of thing? She pointed out a few places, did a whole map thing, and, you know, that was all great. So I walked away. And I was thinking, oh gosh, you know, I'll just have to hire a car or get a grab or whatever and do that. Anyway, she came and patted me on the shoulder and she said, Miss Kerry, I'm going to be finishing my shift in about 15 minutes. If you like, I've got a spare helmet. If you'd be up for it, I could take you around on my bike and I can take you all those places and, we can get that all sorted for you. I went, oh my God, that's just fantastic. So sure enough, 15 minutes later, I'm on the back of the bike, we're zipping around Hoi An, I'm getting all my bits and pieces. And, it was hard to explain to people when I got home from that trip, just how that impacted me and my view of Vietnam in that level of hospitality and service. I don't think I've ever had anyone come from behind a reception desk in Australia, or anyone to help bar lift a bag, like it just would never happen. But it helped form my opinion and my love of Vietnam. I mean, I've since caught up with Rose several times. We've had lunch several times. She's introduced me to other Vietnamese. I've learned so much more about that country through that just one person. So the power of influence in hospitality is really big. And I think, you just have it. You just have that care factor, which is it's very it's hard to beat. It's really hard to beat. I wanted to just share with you the general manager of another hotel that I happen to stay at. He's actually back in Australia at the moment. His name is Mark Spencer. And I've just got a little clip here from him to just talk about what he thinks about this kind of thing.
Look, I think one of the beauties about our tourism and hospitality industry is that you actually have the ability to make a difference, a positive difference in someone's life every single day. And one of the things that I know for certain about my time in Vietnam and working with Vietnamese is that you guys do that so well. You're incredibly good at taking care of people. And it's so heartwarming. But one of the things that I would say is that you need to have a really good grasp of English, but from a conversation point of view, and also to local knowledge and being able to express that, if you like, and being able to explain that what Mission is about, what Marble Mountain is about. And the best way to get in touch with people is to also ask lots of questions. You need to ask lots of questions of people. By asking questions of people, you have the ability to gain their confidence and to gain their trust. And from there, you guys do what you do best, which is just take care of people. So English, ask lots of questions, and what you do naturally will just happen for you, and you'll create some amazing experiences. You'll meet some wonderful people, and you'll have some lifelong friends out of it. A lot of my staff from my previous hotels have had long-lasting friendships with Western guests because they've been so welcoming.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks for coming on the show. I think you nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Let's talk again soon, but really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Well, for a moment, I don't know where Gary is speaking.
Yeah, and look, that just came up in a conversation on the show. I didn't actually put it in the show, but he just volunteered that, and I thought, this just sums up everything that I wanted to say, and kind of backed what I was saying about my story about Rose. She'd probably kill me if she knew that I was talking about it like this. Okay, so I want to talk about locations now. Let's jump to the prospect of the major hubs and look at what some of the challenges are going to be there. You will be considering location. When they say location, they really mean it. Do you want to work in a major hub? I mean, these major hubs have, previous to COVID, had some major issues in regard to people management. So, even if I take Da Nang and Barna Hills, for an example, as a resort, if you wanted to work at that resort, I mean, the crowds that used to come to that to Barna Hills, I can't see moving forward they will let happen, because it was like, we were getting into things and everything was just super tight. And I think moving forward, I think we need to look at how areas like this are going to be managed. And I've already started to see tourism bodies and provinces that have their own tourism bodies. They're coming in and trying to educate the market about this, so that whether you're a restaurant or a hotel, or you offer bike tours or whatever, they're trying to instill in everyone all these extra measures of hygiene and safety that have to be very apparent without them being kind of in your face. They have to be there. When you're working in these areas, and you may decide, no, you want to work in a homestay, you want to work in a more remote area, because the traveller of the future may be that kind of traveller, and they want to go out into big open spaces and they want to enjoy a more eco-travel experience. I mean, the challenge with the major hubs is just the numbers. The factor of big numbers of people, where the more remote, the more smaller areas are going to offer a different kind of experience. So when you see the company and you go, oh, what's the location of that? Inside, thinking about the pressures, the challenges around that, as there's going to be lots of people. I think it's also important to look at when the country is opening up, the major hubs like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi are always going to be their first destinations of arrival, because that's where the international airports are. But where they springboard to and from and how they're managed, likewise, is going to be seen by the tourism bodies and Vietnam Tourism and the provinces that manage these areas. So where are people going to go for guidance around these destinations and the management? The online travel agents and the local travel agents are going to be the decipherers of the truth, I guess. They're going to be the communicators to give you, when you're sitting back here and you're going online and you're looking at that tour and going, oh, wow, that looks great. Communication, key. Getting back quickly. Precise information, and being aware of all of the things that I'm going to have to face to get there, and preempting me about these things. I think there's going to be another look at small groups and the FIT travellers, and I think there's going to be a great reliance on websites and information coming out of Vietnam tourism around that particular location. And how me as a small family or a small group are going to best manage our stay. And then if I am the do it myself, I want to have it all done my way and I want to do it all online, I'm still going to have to rely on the information coming out of Vietnam to be accurate and not having that spin that I talked about before, because that's where Vietnam does get a little bit unstuck. And moving across DMCs, inbound tour operators that have been going a long time with good reputations, etc. The emphasis on them to be delivering precise information back to the travel agents. I talk to travel agents in Australia all the time, and I can see the information that they're getting, and I've got to try and decipher it for them and give it to them back in speak of what's really happening. What the visa tourist situation is right now, what we project it will be. And, bar having a crystal ball, we're all trying to deal with this information and decipher the truth and give the best advice. But the DMCs and the tour operators are definitely the ones, as they are the on-ground operators. And then, of course, there's the resorts and the attractions. Being mindful that these places manage big numbers of people, and the attractions in particular, and just doing that in a very responsible way, so that when I want to take my family, including my mother or someone elderly, that the resort or the attraction, etc., has got everything there managed well, and I can feel safe that everyone in my group or my party or my family, etc., is going to be catered for. This is an example that just came through for Da Nang. I mean, Da Nang as a city, you can imagine if just say the new COVID variant, Omicron, if it was to get hold of Da Nang at this time, it would put pay to everything in phase 1, phase 2, and it would push phase 3 out. It could be paralyzing for the city. So you can see already they are trying to be on the front foot. They're trying to be ahead of the game and gear up people and organizations and businesses that haven't previously had to think about this to the level of detail that they have. But to make sure that experience of the traveller and their review back is going to be positive, they have to get ahead of the game, and people need to step up moving forward. So who is going to be our travellers of the future? We talked a little bit about the long haul and the short haul, but we also need to talk about just the type of traveller that's going to come. I think there's going to be some phases in this as well. So, phase 3, which is really what I'm calling the beginning of the real door opening. So the door's wide open now. We are talking about a country that is 80 to 90% vaxxed. This may not be till March or April next year. But if that is the case, I think there's going to be a bevy of travellers that want to go back, people that have either been before or know of the country or are getting some good information through their online travel experience, etc. But they may fit a category. So they may be the smart traveller, the couple traveller, the adventure traveller. They may fall into categories of risk takers, maybe eco travel, or they may fit that more high end. We talked about that duty of care and the cost management around the complexities there, which includes travel insurance. Did you know that you've got to have $50,000 worth of travel insurance to enter the country and proof of that? In the past, people hardly read their travel insurance policies. There's some people that didn't travel with any. There's some people that just think they're bulletproof. Do you think that's going to happen in the future? It's not, because Vietnam is saying this is the way forward. We're not going to fall prey to incidents that happen that the country can't manage. I had a discussion with Mikel Angel, who works with Vietnam Tourism Board. And, he was talking about that Vietnam in this situation also wants to correct some things that they didn't do so well in the past. And, he said, whether it was a motorbike accident or whatever, are we expected as the government to pay to airlift that person, to a better hospital because they're stuck, in Mai Chau or somewhere like that, and we've got to airlift them to Bangkok? He said, we don't have the resources to do that, and the government can't afford to do that. So we have to put the responsibility back on the tourist. And he said, we should have done that before. So COVID, despite all the negatives, there is going to be some positives out of it. And I think being mindful and have the insights into understanding how the industry is embracing some of these as positives, I think, should be a way for us to feel good about the future. I just wanted to give some expectation management around just the whole range of opportunities that sit under travel and tourism management. I think in the attractions area, we're going to look at better organised, less people, improved cleanliness, sanitisation. Even if you just take that line, think of the companies that are going to spring up to be able to fulfill that. Sanitisation companies, people that manage the cleanliness side of things. They're going to be selling product to the hotel. Better organised, people that go for jobs that are very good in organisational skills. If they want that job and they want to work for that company, all they've got to do is tune into that factor. Hotels, flexible booking arrangements. So previously, if the hotel didn't have a very good online reception or technical standpoint as far as their own website, if you are a tech person, if that's where your skills are aligned, if you can go into that company and offer some suggestions, etc., to enhance the operation and the skills there. Once again, improved hygiene, well-trained staff. Do you have a training bent? You know, are you good at sharing information? If that's something that, you know, will come out of this, this might suit you in a hotel. That job probably didn't even exist pre-COVID, but moving forward, training will. So if you have got any training skills or you want to steer your career that way, then there's going to possibly be opportunities for you working in the hotels. And the same with effective communications. If you're good in English and you're good at writing English, if you're good at constructing information and communicating effectively, once again, there's new jobs and opportunities that are going to come out of this. As I said, positive and negative. You might want to work for the airlines. There's going to be lots, a raft of changes there that are moving forward. And they're going to have to be competitive in pricing, and they may have to look at changing some of their ways in the future. And then there's the tourism bodies. I mean, traditionally, in my experience with the tourism bodies, they have really struggled. They've struggled financially, and they've struggled with expertise. So the person that's handling the communications within that tourism body sometimes can't even speak English. So how they're communicating to the wider audience, I have no idea. But suffice to say, they're just doing or managing the this way and just in domestic. So once again, lots of opportunities moving forward. So any questions at this point before I start to go to the next stage?
Yes, if you have any questions, feel free to drop into the box. Carrie can please just carry on. Yes, I'm going to let you know if there's any questions.
Okay.
Hello, Carrie.
I'd just like to introduce you to Paul Simpson. Paul operates the hotel, believe it or not, that Rose used to work at. And I still go to this hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. And I was speaking to Paul about how does a hotel deliver the hygiene and safety without it kind of being in your face and kind of being over the top. And this was his little bit to share.
Hello, Carrie. It's great to be back with you at Carrie Newsom, What About Vietnam? As we've been discussing, this whole process of welcoming guests back to Vietnam and Hoi An is evolutionary. We have to take it as it comes. And some of the protocols that I've instituted at our hotels are to ensure that guests feel welcomed, relaxed, and at the same time, a sense of health, safety, and hygiene that's all around them, but in a passive sense, so that they don't feel that it's in their face. They don't feel that they are in a war zone. They feel relaxed and on holiday, which is, after all, what they're here for. Some of those things, we're using fine linen masks that are hand embroidered, and they're reusable, and we can wash them in glacial acetic acid to make sure that they're completely hygienic and you don't look like you're in a hospital ward. At the same time, all of our protocols and processes are evolutionary because this hasn't happened to us ever before. We have to implement safety, health, and hygiene procedures, reevaluate them as we go along, and then find better ways to implement them and make sure that our guests feel that they're always available to them. Training our staff to speak English is critically important so that our staff can understand and comprehend what our guests need and provide it. We have it all available. All you need to do is ask, or if we can sense what you need, we will provide it for you. We want you to have a wonderful holiday, not feel like you're in a war zone. Carrie, thanks so much for having us back with you. Really appreciate it, and I really enjoy What About Vietnam?
I just need more fans like Paul. I'm going to throw the next part of our presentation back to Camelia at this stage. We're going to do a bit of a fun game, and I'll be back with you shortly.
Sure. Thanks, Gary, for this wonderful information. You know what, there's so much information, so many topics that we need to cover. And sometimes we are really struggle, like we don't know if that's too much information for you or too little, but it's so much more that we want to share with you. So one of those very important topics that we would like to share with you is about sustainability. And Carrie said, well, I'm not going to spend another hour talking about sustainability. In fact, it's gonna take a few days. So we decided that we're gonna turn it into a game for you, just to make it fun. This is also one of the topics that we get quite a bit of attention from our audience, asking what our perspective or opinions are about sustainability or sustainable tourism in Vietnam. But before we jump into this, we also would like you to share a bit of your experience or knowledge around sustainable tourism. Can you actually mention, either to open up your microphone or put into the chat box, what do you think sustainable tourism is about? Just feel free to open up the mic if you need to share so it's quicker, or just say a few words of what you think is sustainable tourism. Let me see as well from the chat box here.
All right, I hope you can hear me on this one as well.
Yes,
So,
please.
look, there's a number of angles we can look at for sustainable tourism. And by the way, this is Raj Taneja. I'm the president of La Chaîne de Rôtisseurs. Most Vietnamese people call me Rao because I have a beard, or Zo. So, look, sustainable tourism has to have a number of things. One of the things that we're looking at right now for a lot of hotels is just even the products that they use. Where are they getting their products from? You know, what is the shampoo, the soap that you're using? So that's the first one. When they come to the food and beverage programs, and this is where I'm the expert, is where are they getting their produce from? Are they importing beef from far away like America, or are they using beef that's closer and maybe sustainably grown? Are we having fish that is local, or are we bringing Norwegian salmon? So those are two areas that we can look at. And then, of course, the third one is, you know, how do we deal with the carbon footprint of some of these places that we're going to, and then also the impact. When we go to a place like the cave, you know, Sung Dong Cave, what is it that we're doing to the environment when we do that? Are we putting too many tourists through an area? So that's my 2 cents on sustainable tourism. I know that Carrie has a lot more to add to that, because she is definitely the expert in that area. So I look forward to hearing what she has to say.
Yes, Carrie, anything that you got to say?
Look, when we were putting this together, it was obviously it has to fit into the same basket of beyond COVID and welcoming back tourists. And the more I discover about Vietnam around this, is that there's a little bit of confusion about what it actually means, and where the places are that are managing it the best, as in a location. So, you know, it also includes things like waste management. You're right, we talked about the cave. I was talking to Oxalis a few months ago, and, you know, their footprint around visiting the cave, they're only allowed a certain number of people to go through for that very reason. But it springs off into so many areas. I said to community, I could just do a whole webinar just on sustainable tourism, because it also goes into how the companies are going to sustain themselves moving forward, as far as not making the same mistakes that as happened during COVID, and they found that they were dependent on one form of traveller versus another. And some of the changes in their business practices that they need to be aware of. Yeah, there's just so much to add to it that yeah, it does my head in a little bit. So yeah, so thanks for your input. Really appreciate that. And let's have a bit of fun, Camelia. Let's
have
play the
a
game.
bit of fun. It's too much of theory right now. Okay, so yes, so what we're gonna get into this mini game is I just pop out a couple of questions just to remind you what sustainability is about, or sustainable tourism is about. And it's very important part as well. I would like to share with you, for every mini game that we play, we make sure that you're going to have beautiful gift at the end, right? So one of those gifts that brought by to us is a gift from What About Vietnam. So what I'm gonna tell you right now is what Carrie is going to bring us. So she said that she's going to give us knowledge. I'm not sure if everybody's interested in getting knowledge as a gift, but I am. That's probably what, yeah, that's a good point, right? So we're going to get a bit of knowledge. Oh, wow, it's good. Thank you very much. Very generous of you. But it's more important as well. We can actually have an actual gift. And maybe I'm going to hand it over to Carrie. Can you tell us a bit about the gift that you bring to us?
Yes. Okay. So I was able to obtain some of this beautiful lacquer art. So I was able to get this vase and some other items as well. But this one in particular is really beautiful. Let me just read a little bit about it. So the piece is made in the Hung Na Fine Arts Company in Ho Chi Minh City. And this is an award-winning furniture and decor company established back in 1988. Each piece is an embodiment of Vietnamese heritage of lacquer, and it's made with modern techniques, but the result of a very time-honored process. Each piece, believe it or not, is given 13 coats of lacquer, which means, you know, its durability, its shine, its beauty is embodied in that really slow process. It's very ornamental, of course, but this hand-painted piece of Vietnamese art goes back, the actual art of it goes back thousands of years. I mean, the vase isn't thousands of years old, it's brand new, but it is the I guess the epitome of what the artisan is able to produce. So it's not like some of those lacquered things that you see in the markets sometimes that, you know, you get them home and then they start to peel and carry on. It's not like that. It's a real piece of art. So I feel very lucky to share it with the winner. So hope you enjoy.
Yes. So for the winner of these, right, just bear in mind that Carrie is actually based in Sydney right now, and then the gift gonna be sent directly to you from Carrie in Sydney. And if you happen to be the winner, please do send us an email with your address so that we can work out on our logistic part. All right. So for the game, how we're gonna play this game, we're going to pop out a questions on this screen. So all you have to do is a few things right now. First, you have to be knowledgeable enough, obviously, in order to answer the questions, but you have to be very quick and fast. Because what you have to do is, as soon as my question is displayed on this screen, you would need to raise your hand or open your microphone to give the answer to Carrie, because Carrie gonna tell you is that it's a correct answer or if acceptable for you to become the winner. Okay, so when you're ready, I'm gonna have the questions now. The question is, which of these places is considered the most sustainable tourist destination? We have Ha Long Bay, Sapa, Hoi An, and Mai Châu. All right, so time is drawn now. It's a bit of silence.
We need,
somebody chat. See Hoi An? You need to raise your hand and turn on the microphone to speak. No, please.
My answer is C, because Hoi An it's in the heritage, World Heritage. I forgot the name of the organization.
UNESCO.
Yeah, UNESCO. Mm-hmm. And it has been kept the same ever since then. So
can I say?
Sure you can. Who is that?
Yeah, I'm Zong. And actually,
okay.
I think the C, Hoi An, is my response, because I think Hoi An is very well in preserving the intangible culture, intangible the heritage means the culture, and also with the tangible heritage means all the structures have been built like a few centuries ago. I think with the conservation of the tangible and intangible, that can consider the most sustainable tourism destination.
Well, anybody have any other thought onto this? Anybody want to give it another try?
Let me just talk a little bit about what I'm trying to get across here. All of these destinations have some level of sustainable tourism activities and processes, but there's possibly one that stands out a little bit ahead of the rest as far as ecotourism, being aware of their environment, the way they handle waste and plastics and things like that, the way the area draws from its local environment for produce, the way it works with its internal mechanisms for resources as far as staff is concerned and staff training, the way it looks to self-generate through their own produce, or whether they're fish farming or they're anything like that, and looking at ways to restore itself so that it is a sustainable tourism location in the future. And that does include also it managing the people footprint as well. If I can just say about Hoi An, Hoi An is the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The UNESCO World Heritage Site is about an area of about 2 kilometres in total. And within that 2 kilometres is the old town, and the preservation of that old town is absolutely vital and important. It dates back to the 16th century, some of those buildings. However, Hoi An as a whole, as a bigger area, has a lot of other areas. So I was probably looking at Hoi An as a whole, the same for Sapa and the same for Halong Bay.
Yes, and we also have a guest who, Greg, actually nominated Halong Bay as the most sustainable tourist destination of all the options that we are given. We just want to give the final thought onto those who would like to bring your answer or any explanation from your side before Carrie actually comes to conclusion. Carrie, what if we cannot find the person who gave the correct answer? What we're going to do about it?
I'm wondering whether this is something for people to contemplate. And so at this moment and thinking about it, they might come up with a different idea later. So maybe they can send their answer and we can look at their answers later on. So it's just one answer, one A, B, C, or D that I'm looking for. But I think we take people after we're finished, and we maybe look at them because they've had a chance to really think about it. Because I think there's lots of things, as Raj was saying a little bit before, but it's a very broad topic.
Absolutely.
And what I've tried to do is just try to hone it down to one area that I feel like kind of stands out a little bit more than the others in doing a good job of sustainability. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Carrie, because there's some of our guests actually asking how many questions are these for this mini game. I said there's only one, because there's one thing we would like you to take away. So please have some more time to think about it, and we have it from now until end of the webinar, so that you can still submit your question and submit your answer or explanation as well for us to find the winner. In the meantime, maybe I'm gonna again invite Carrie to take over, because we're gonna jump into our discussion and activity part. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay. So where do I go back? Share. No. I'm lost. No. How can I get back? Let me.
You can just open your browser. I think is where you left off.
Yeah, where is it? Yeah. Okay. I thought we might start a bit of an activity around career mind mapping. And I don't know whether any of you have done mind mapping before, but it's a really great way of being able to help make decisions on anything. So you can use it across a lot of different things, but I thought we've covered so many topics, and I'm trying to marry them up with where your career you might steer your career in the future, and where you may want to align your skills and your interest to that career. So firstly, what I'd like you to do is draw 2 circles alongside of each other on a piece of paper. If you've all got a piece of paper, on one side, just really quickly, first things that pop into your head. So my skills and interests. One of my skills and my interests is meeting people. I love meeting people. I wouldn't say I'm a tech buff person, but you might be. So very quickly, just draw out lines of all the different things. We'll just give you a couple of minutes to write those down. And, you know, thought starters might be you like communication, or you like doing things on a website, or you have a real love of history or culture, or you like caring for people, or you like housekeeping, you like doing things in a house to make it beautiful, you like to entertain, you like to share knowledge. So all of these kinds of things. And then the next one, I want you to put in the middle circle the tourism industry. And then let's kind of draw some other circles around what are some organizations, or not necessarily names of organizations, some tourism industry areas. So it might be airlines, it might be a tour guide, it might be a hotel, it might be somewhere like International SOS that you want to be there to consult to that company around Vietnam because you like communication. It might be, it might work at an attraction. Maybe it might be working at an eco resort because you have an interest in sustainability. You might want to work for a company that specializes in the products that are going to be sold to hotels and various companies in managing hygiene and safety, because that is something that you're really interested in. It may be you like working with children. So you want to manage how children are looked after and cared for in hotels and resorts post-COVID to give confidence. So how's everyone going with that? Can we get a why or a yes or a heart, or you're moving through it, or you're finding some ideas? Any feedback?
I think it is very useful, Carrie, because sometimes, like for me personally, I always feel stuck because I feel like I have so many interests in life that I don't know how to deal with it. Like when I was a kid, I want to be a singer, and then I want to be a teacher, and then I want to be, and maybe I just want to be a normal person having an office job. And then it turns out when I'm growing up, I become a hotelier. So there's all sort of thing, and it's always like I feel like I can do so many things in life, but I don't know how to deal with it. So this actually quite a bit, because you can actually link one to another skill that you have, right? So I'm actually drawing mine. So I have with me, for me, the industry part would be on hotel, education and training, and maybe sales marketing. And then for the other skill and interests that I have would get into the whole bunch of like history, social media savvy, singing, taking care of people, communication, fashion, culture, arts, and all sort of things.
Wow,
That's
great. Gosh, I thought I had some big ideas, but that beats me hands down. So it could kind of look like this in the end. So that, you know, if you have an interest in travel, but, you know, you really, your skill is in tech, you really like tech stuff, you could actually work for a travel tech company, because travel is going to emerge and grow and evolve in the travel tech space. So if you have history as a love, maybe you'd like to be a tour guide and talk to people and meet people and advise them about the history of Vietnam, so that you can welcome them through your knowledge and your love of your own country. I'm amazed when I talk to some Vietnamese that they're still learning about their own country, because at school, that was not such a big thing. You were learning about other countries. Maybe it's food. Maybe you want to be a foodie and invent food tours, or you want to work for a hotel and build up their restaurant and create fabulous menus that people want to be attracted to. Maybe you want to travel with the airlines. Maybe you want to look at that as an opportunity. So you can see how these dotted lines join across and kind of help you marry up and align yourself. Because I think one of the things when you are young, or when you're developing your career, as you say, you love lots of things, but how can that align to a job? How can that align to a company? And I think I mentioned earlier today, having insight into what we've talked about today, about where the country is headed as we go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, post-COVID. There's going to be, it's going to be intense about gathering information and then modeling it to what you want to do with your career. Because I know there's people who are studying here in Australia and thinking about, oh, what am I going to do back in Vietnam? As in, like, what's going to be open? What's going to be closed? Is travel still going to happen? I mean, they must be all, concerning issues. And that's why it's really important that we get through this spin and we try and decipher the realities, and we get communication that's authentic, and we're dealing with people that we can trust, because that spin's kind of going wild. I mean, there's an announcement, I think Camelia and I were talking, like it hits us hourly, where something is like, I read an article just last night that Ho Chi Minh City was voted the MICE destination of Asia for 21. Now that seems incredible to me, because Ho Chi Minh City was shut down for about 4 months. There was no international travelers. There was kind of almost zero domestic. So how did it get voted the #1 MICE destination for Asia in the year 21? I'm just perplexed. So this is kind of an example of that spin, and where we need to go, that doesn't sound quite right, and try and work with the truth as best we can. How did everybody go with that?
We have one sharing from Ngọc Do, saying that her interest is in meeting people to open up her perspective, to learn about the world through people's stories. And we have another comment as well from Zoom, saying that this mind mapping is very useful to brainstorm and to identify, position ourselves in the industry. So thank you, Carrie, for this very beautiful exercise that we think is very useful for all of us.
And, you can change those and create anything in those circles. So instead of my skills and interests, you might say, what do I want to do in the next 10 years? The next 5 years? And put all the things around there, and then match that over and say, oh, would that be a DMC? Yes, I think that would be really good to be able to come back and educate people, etc., in the long term, because you have a long-term vision. So it's really fun. I use it a lot. I think it's fair to say that every segment will have its role to play, and it was great being able to give the prize of the lacquer art, because that is, it's a homegrown product of Vietnam. It's part of your heritage, it's part of your culture, and it's a piece of art. And one of the things that I've enjoyed very much as I've come to visit Vietnam more often is having a look at all of the segments within the industry. And one of those is shopping, and one of those is opening up that culture there to our travelers as well. So, make sure that where you can align your interest, and, you could work for Ginkgo or another company. And once again, that's meeting people. Once again, that's talking about history. So, it's kind of really keeping a very wide scope. I hope my story about Rose, I think hearing from the manager, Mark Spencer, talk about how caring Vietnamese people are generally and how welcoming they can be. You have the opportunity to be an ambassador. You have the opportunity in any of these roles to influence people because your influence is going to be me and then everyone I know, because I'm going to speak about Vietnam from my experience. And if my experience is good, my review on TripAdvisor is going to count. My sharing with my friends, my social media, my Instagrams are all going to speak about my experience. So really important to understand that you do have quite a powerful role to consider in this process and coming out of COVID. And because Vietnam is playing catch up, there is going to be lots of talk about, if you're studying in Australia, I think Vietnam wants you back. And I think Vietnam has to grow with this understanding that they are playing catch up, but they've got so much to offer. And I think that's the bit that's exciting, and we could kind of get some things, right. Had a chance to talk to Mikkel and Jill, and I'm going to kind of get to the closing part of our presentation with a little snippet from him, as I didn't even ask him, he volunteered it. So it was just kind of...
I see many now Vietnamese who are coming to study in Australia instead of going to the US or to Europe or to Canada. And that's the good thing. So I have now in my list of regular contacts talking weekly, people doing PhDs in Australia, people with master degrees there in Melbourne, in Sydney, in Canberra, and they call me often because they are the ones who want to help me to make Vietnam better, which for me is a pleasure. The only issue I have with that, with all these students and leaders, I call them leaders, that they will bring Vietnam much up to the market where Vietnam deserves, is that they live so happily there in Australia that they don't want to go back to Vietnam to help me here on the ground. And that's a problem. So I'm a little bit kind of call it as a complaint, if you want to complain a bit to the Australian citizens, universities and residents, that you treat all my lovely boys and girls so well that they don't want to return or only come on holidays. But I need people to sit with me, sipping Vietnamese cup of coffee or Vietnamese cup of tea, and help me on the ground too. So take this as a good recommendation for me. Please return soon, come to help me kill in Vietnam.
I think Mikkel did a great job of just nailing that. I think that everywhere in the circles that I'm mixing across DMCs, travel agents, tour operators, hotel managers, travelers, industry experts, etc. Vietnam needs to get prepared. It needs to be on the forefront, like Da Nang City, initiating some guidelines for operators to know what to do. So for you, opportunities can be found in Vietnam, and they'll be offered by those companies who are taking a very proactive approach and putting in place new strategies for a stronger and more sustainable tourism industry in the future. We've got a lot of ground to make up between 3.8 million and 18 million people. That's 15 million people we're missing out on, and we want back, and we want them back happy and more. So we need to ask more questions. We need to, when you're sitting in an interview, it's not just about them telling you everything. They're going to expect you to be asking questions of them about their philosophy, about their vision, about what they're going to do, how they're going to train you, how they're going to manage you. You need to really know your company's philosophy. And I think there's some great opportunities that are going to springboard from this. But we need to be conscious, and we need to be prepared. I really appreciate what AHA is doing in this area. Camelia is doing a brilliant job in getting the message out. And I think, following her lead, I think we all need to get better at sharing information and when it comes. And I think we need to do it in a way that is positive, but authentic and real, and keeping it spot on. So thank everyone for coming on. I hope I've been able to get across to you the big picture, because I think that's where you need to be in the future, thinking about the big picture. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Carrie. I just cannot thank enough for all the things that you did. You know, we've been working together for a month now to trying to put all the information together, and then there's so many concerns in between, like technical issue and all the obstacles that we have actually overcome to be able to deliver the webinar today to all of you. And I know like many people actually asked me if this webinar actually going to be recorded. I said yes, 100% going to be available on YouTube this afternoon, so that you can rewatch it anytime that you like. And especially for Carrie actually understand that. That's why she opened up her channel, What About Vietnam, which is a postcard audio version for you to listen anytime. We know that some people asking questions about destination wedding, some people asking about how Vietnam going to be ready in the post-COVID era. So all of these questions are actually being addressed a lot already on What About Vietnam. Feel free to check it out, whataboutvietnam.com. That's where all the informations are. And moving to the end of the discussion today, if you have any questions, feel free to drop into the box, but
Yes.
we believe that most of the questions are actually being addressed already, except for the final question that we have about sustainable tourism being asked for the mini game.
It's
so
a tough one.
far, we actually have 3 people vote for Hoi An, because Hoi An turned out to be a very well-known destination that brings sustainable tourism practices into daily activity of what they do, and make it such a good city for sustainable tourism branding. There's one answer from Mr. He Phan from Jania Hotel by San Ho, saying that he voted for Hoi An because the Hoi An citizen and local authority preserve the ancient houses, cultural sites, including ancient villages, very well. The waste management are also being controlled in a really good pace, so that the town is very clean. The bags with replacing plastic straw with environmental options. Culture shows and traditional rituals are well preserved, and many are introduced to tourists to help them understand more about Vietnam. So all these are very, very, very good answer, right? So I think to help all the audience, right? Carrie, maybe you can share us your opinion, and also what you can do to help as well is to take out 2 incorrect answers from the selection, and maybe we can come in closer into finalizing the correct answer, or how do you think we should do with it?
Look, I think the area is difficult to be 100%. Hoi An does follow some of those practices, but if I was to also add that some of the practices of the restaurants and some of the local hotels, etc., even to respect to managing their the river, the Tubon River, and the practice of waste management, there is some discrepancies there, and it's a little bit difficult to say when it sits alongside the UNESCO World Heritage Site, because the gentleman before is correct. They do a lot to make sure that the upkeep of the old area. But it's only 2 kilometers of Hoi An, and the Quang Nam tourism area is quite big. And, you know, sometimes when I visit other areas around Hoi An, like Ang Bang or Kurai or whatever, these are areas very close. You would be, I would be remiss to not look at some of them and get disappointed because of the negligence that is going to ruin the environment. And then by that, that's going to ruin it for the rest of the area. So it's not my number 1 pick. I've got to be honest with you. There are other areas that are more sustainable within themselves because of the way they cultivate and use what they have within their own environment in a sustainable way. They don't depend on outside as much. They do very much within their own environment. So it would be considered a more sustainable. I'm not saying where it is at this point, but maybe it's one for afterwards, when people have given it a bit more thought or done a bit more research or whatever. It's not an obvious place in that list. That's
Okay.
my hint.
So Kerry's hint is actually Hoi An is taken out from the options, and right
Yes,
now you have
I
three.
hate to say that, but for those reasons, where you cannot isolate just the old township, which is 2 kilometers. It's a much bigger reason. Maybe I should have said Quang Nam, but yeah, Quang Nam tourism. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so how we're going to deal with this when we have the remaining 3 destinations with option A for Hạ Long Bay, option B for Sapa, and option D for Mai Châu. Have you been to all of these places? Well, I'm very familiar with Hạ Long Bay because I'm from north of Vietnam, and then it's only take a 2-hour drive to Hạ Long Bay. So it's something that we've been seeing almost, I think I've been there maybe 10 times in my life.
Yes, and so you would be able to account to its very, its big people imprint, you know, the amount of people that go through Hạ Long Bay. And once again, how they treat the environment, how the environment manages itself, and how it protects its environment, the beautiful caves, you know, the township, you know, all of that. It's totally driven by tourism, and tourism which hasn't been in the past well managed. It's been a little bit chaotic, and it's getting better. But some people talk to me and seek out places other than Hạ Long Bay. Is there another bay? And I go, yes, there is. There's Lan Ha Bay, which is right next door. It's much quieter. It's much more peaceful. It's better managed. The environment is better kept, and it is more sustainable as far as the activities of the cruise companies, because they've been told to not treat Lan Ha Bay the way they treated Hạ Long Bay. So, you know, how they handle, how the boat, where does it draw, you know, are they, as the gentleman on the show said earlier today, you know, are they flying in Norwegian salmon? I'd be horrified to think that they do. But, you know, I'm hoping they are using local farmers and their produce from the environment. But where we've made some mistakes in some areas, I think we're trying to correct them in others and try and play catch up. So, and, you know, the same can be said for Sapa. You know, Sapa has, you know, a very well-trodden tourist track. And, you know, some would question whether or not all of those tracks are authentic, or whether they're sprinkled with, unfortunately, people selling goods that are not from local people making them. They're possibly made in China. You know, I'm looking for an area that is sustainable from itself. So an area that its own environment feeds its own people, that has its own sustainability because it cares about the environment, that we want to keep it as beautiful as it is forever. I mean, one of the things that COVID has done for the country is, in these areas, because there hasn't been 15 million people, some of these areas have had a chance to regenerate because of the footprint has been reduced. So there's beautiful areas which have had a chance to breathe, to grow, to expand, for people to think about how they can do things better, take time out to do things better, to look at the way they're handling things, to put in new best practices. You know, this is the positives out of this situation. And I think we're going to come back, and we are going to see a greener, richer Vietnam. I mean, there are some areas I am concerned that, and, you know, if we talk about Hoi An is experiencing great hardship. They've had about 5 floods. They've had a typhoon. The old town is almost dead at the moment because, you know, the people that were selling their wares were selling them to tourists. Is that a sustainable model? No, because it is totally 100% then based on international tourism, because as soon as international tourism got ripped out, it fell. So that's not sustainable tourism. They need to find ways that they can sustain themselves within themselves. And unfortunately, they've been too focused on the overseas or the international tourist.
You just remind me that some area of Hoi An actually seeing the beach area start to disappear. So in terms of sustainability, yes, maybe they do it right when it comes into preserving all the ancient houses, culture, and promotion. And then Hoi An has been known a lot as one of the world's most livable cities, right? But on the other hand, what we see, the environmental impact is something that we obviously have to think a bit deeper. Even Hoi An right now is also facing with a lot of flood issue, even right now at the moment, right? With heavy rain and all the sort of thing. And there's another participant nominated Sapa because it's still plain. I'm not sure how do we define the plain as a definition for Sapa.
Sorry, what was that?
Somebody say that she would like to nominate Sapa as a sustainable destination because it is still plain, meaning like it's still a bit maybe natural or untouched. Ngọc, would you like to raise your voice?
I mean, it's still very raw and untouched by lots of tourists.
There's actually lots of tourists in Sapa. When was the last time you went to Sapa?
I have never been to Sapa.
Oh, okay. Sapa actually gets quite busy, and there are a lot of tourists that flock to Sapa. So Sapa is considered quite a busy place. To find those plain and very raw areas, you actually have to go a little bit off the tourist track, and you have to go kind of more into the hinterland and the highlands area, which might be, you know, half an hour out of Sapa. But Sapa itself and the environments where people just come in and do a quick tour is quite busy. Not raw at all, not plain.
But in terms of the preservations, I think it's still well reserved than other tourist areas like Phu Quang.
Do you know Phu Quang?
What's that?
Do you know have you been to the island, Phu Quang?
Yes, a very long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, Phu Quang is an interesting situation. It's a population of about 150,000 people. It's been going through a very big evolution of change. A lot of development, a lot of hotel groups are bought into the island. But if you go back a few years ago, it was, you know, quite raw in some areas, but in others not so. You know, it's got a fish farm, factory and very big produce, and also the pepper farms are also very famous. I left with pepper and fish sauce, and I've got to go back just to get that. But the island per se is very popular with the European market and the Chinese market. And so it kind of got bombarded with that, and we're now seeing a lot of development. So I'm hoping we're going to be able to protect our beaches there and our locations for swimming and diving. Diving is a very big thing there. But once again, you've got to kind of get off the tourist track to find these locations now, because, you know, that 15 million people that I kind of mentioned, it kind of came to Vietnam and really enjoyed lots of it, including those places that you mentioned. So they're not quite as raw. Or, you know, I visited Hoi An back 2007, was my first visit. Well, like now it is nothing like it was, and that's, you know, not that long ago. So I think Vietnam has evolved and has really received a lot of tourists, and to its benefit, but also to its detriment. So I think we have to be aware that Vietnam is is an evolving, developing country, and some of these areas have really been a little bit overdone with tourism, if I may say.
Kerry, there's a guest who would like to speak up to give the answer to the questions.
Sure.
We still have a couple of minutes, right? Please go ahead, Zoom.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Zoom.
I think, yes, thanks, Kerry. You provided a very insightful and a very detailed explanation for this. But I think that maybe as your explanations, I think it's still quite debatable for the definitions of sustainable tourism development. I think you might pick up my choice as the answer, I guess, because I think I have been to my choice a few times, and I think they receive a very supportive, very good support of the local government, as well as I think one of the good sides that they don't allow any big hotel or any resort, but the homestay, which is very good for the local community. I think from the inner strength, you create the inner strength for the community, so they can help themselves other than to benefit others outsiders. I think that's one way of the sustainable development, and I think that may be your choice, I guess. But I still preserve my answer to Hoi An, because I have been to Hoi An. I think also they are doing a very good job in terms of the management, the preservation, etc. Thank you.
Zung, that is a great answer, and I think we have to award you the prize. And I'm really delighted that you gave your explanation, because you're very true. I think what impresses me the most about Mai Chau is its non-dependability on the overseas tourist to sustain itself, and that is the significant difference around the comparison with Hoi An, where it does depend on the international tourism to survive. I mean, one of the things that you brought up, which I really liked, was the fact that it can, it's making some policies around international hotels and how it's going to impact the environment before they start putting up the building, not after. And I think it's those discussions and just visiting the processes that have gone into ensuring that they don't make some similar mistakes to Hoi An in some ways. So I'm really, really thankful for your input and for the explanation, because I think it's very true. Hoi An does do a great job, but I think it has a way to go, because tourism was going crazy as of 2019. I mean, there were busloads and busloads. They had to be taken into the old town, from outside the town. They were lined up, and so they just couldn't manage it in the end. It was just getting overtaken, and unfortunately now that there's no tourists, it has the possibility to turn into a ghost town, which concerns me greater, because all of the people that were there and were earning jobs and had a life there have had to go back to their families in the rural areas, etc., because they can't earn a living. There's no work. The hotels are closed. So when we come back in the third phase, I'm wondering whether tourists will be that excited about Hoi An when it's a ghost town, or would they go to Mai Chau maybe as an alternative, because it's flourishing and it's green, and it's going to give them that open spaces and see that beautiful Vietnam. In both cases, they're both beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I fear for Hoi An as a steeper climb back than any other place or other places. Are you based, Sung, are you based in Australia? That was my other question.
No, actually, I'm based in the central Vietnam. I think it's about 100 kilometers away from Hoi An.
Okay, all right. Okay, we just need to get a place that we can post it to you so that I can send it to you. I might send it to Camellia first and maybe then to you. The postal system isn't always that reliable, but
Wow, that's a much appreciated. Thank you for that.
yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. That was always going to be the case for
So
sure.
we're gonna fire away. So if possible, please do drop us an email to our general email info@aha.org so that we can support you with this logistic. And thank you, Kerry, for your beautiful and kind sponsorship to this mini game. And we have such a great discussion and debate as well.
Yeah, no, good. I love
see
it.
that some people moving from not very convinced into being very convinced, and now we kind of understanding now we need to think of sustainable tourism in a way that it should exist before even although infrastructure, even before although places become famous. So that is how we need to start things, especially to all area that you mentioned, they are raw or plain or nature or untouched. The sooner we start, the better it is for us in the future to keep the image of sustainable tourism, to not only for tourists, but to benefit the host government and the host community as well. All right, and that also brings us to the end of our discussion today. And before we end the section, we just want to keep you informed that our first AHA Connection Day in 2021 going to take place in a few days, which is on Friday, the 10th of December. We're going to host in a hybrid form with an online section from 3 to 5 p.m. Kerry going to be one of our speakers, either can join directly or maybe from a virtual form when she can make herself available to join us. And we're also going to have our first offline event as well, going to be hosted at the Presidential Suite at the Sofitel Saigon Plaza. From 7 to 9 p.m. So we hope with this beautiful theme of Melbourne Cup as well, going to get to see you in colorful costume and a lot of activity, and also a lot of beautiful prizes as well from coming from a little sponsors that I have on the screen here as you see. So maybe time for you to plan already which destination you want to plan for your holiday. And in January, the webinar going to come back with you on another section focusing on events. So for those who would like to know about event management or who want to be a wedding planner, this is the chance for you to register now so that we can discuss further. And I just want to have the final request. If you allow us to take a screenshot of the screen so that everybody can please turn on your camera so that we can capture a screenshot of whoever still here with us. Yes, if you could please turn on your camera, that would be great. Actually, it is, we understand it's a Saturday morning, and we have a lot of obligation with your family, and some of them send me a message saying, I'm so sorry, I love the webinar, but I need to go back to my wife and kid. Or some of them saying, it's my birthday, my parents are calling, but we still have a few staying with us right now. So thank you very much for all your participation, your time, your support to the AHA, to me and Kerry, to make this on happen. So Nhi, are we ready to take the screenshot?
Yeah, okay.
Just let me quickly get into this. Okay, I do this so that it gives
Can you
a nicer background.
Sharing to the full screen? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, you smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Once again, I don't know how to thank enough. That is our final webinar of the year. And Kerry, once again, thank you so much for making it so special for us. All the effort you have put in, and we hope to see you again many times again with future project with the AHA, and to see you again on one of our upcoming webinar very soon.
Thanks very much, Camellia, and thank you everyone for attending. I hope you found it interesting.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna stop it here, and you can leave now since it's almost 12 o'clock. We give you a bit longer.